my fingers are hurting. I've worked puzzles and I've read until I can see hardly straight. I'm just tired of being cooped up in this house. I'm tired of waiting.
You know, me too. I'd like to go out to eat.
Yeah.
I'm tired of waiting for you and Ann to go back to school and work so I can have the house back to myself.
I'd like to get
All
a
these things.
haircut.
I just can't wait till all this is over and we're back to normal.
And I miss our Sunday school kids.
That's right. Well, you know, boys and girls, in our story today, there were some people who had to wait. So I want you to listen while I tell you the story. The last time that we were together as a group at church, we had the story about Jesus being born. Well, today's story happened just a few days later. Mary and Joseph, Jesus' parents, took him to the temple to have him dedicated. Now, back in those days, that was the way that folks did. They took their babies to the temple to have them dedicated, which is kind of like taking them and making a promise to God that they were going to raise him to love God and do the right things. So they took him. They even, the Bible tells us, offered 2 sacrifices to God, 2 birds as sacrifices to God. Well, while they were there, they met a man named Simeon. Now, Simeon was a man who loved God. He trusted God's promise that he was going to send a Messiah to save people from their sins. Now, God's Spirit was with Simeon, and God had told him that he was not going to die until he saw the one that would rescue people from their sins. Now, Simeon waited for years and years and years, just like we're having to wait now. Well, that day, God's Spirit told Simeon he should go to the temple, and he did. And when he got there, he saw Jesus. He picked him up in his arms. And God's Spirit told Simeon that he, Jesus, was the promised Messiah. He was so happy, he praised God and said, Lord, you can let me die now because I've seen that you've kept your promise. I've seen the one who will save people from their sins. He was so happy, and Mary and Joseph were amazed at what Simeon said. He also blessed Mary and Joseph, and he told them some things too. He told Mary that being Jesus' mother would be a very good thing, but it would also be very hard. That some people would love Jesus, but others would hate him. And these things were going to happen. We're going to make Mary very sad. Also that day, they met a lady named Anna. Anna was old, and she was a widow. That means her husband had died. And she came to the temple every day to worship God. And you know, she had waited too for a long time for God to send a Messiah. And she went up to Simeon and Mary and Joseph, and she talked about to people and told people about Jesus and how God had sent him to save the world. You know, when Mary and Joseph finished dedicating Jesus at the temple and making the sacrifices, they left and they went back home to Nazareth, and Jesus grew up strong and healthy. He was wise and God was happy with him. Now, throughout the whole Old Testament, and we've had those lessons, God promised that he would send a king who would save his people. And when Jesus arrived, Simeon and Anna knew he was the promised Messiah. Today, we have faith that Jesus is God's Son. We can trust Jesus for our salvation just like Simeon and Anna, and we should share that good news with other people too.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Murray. You know, boys and girls, if you are tired of waiting just like we are, you get your parents to send us your email through Facebook. They can message that to us, and we'll send you some activities that you can work on at home to help pass the time. And I wanted to mention, last week we got a precious picture that one of our kids drew for us, and it just made us smile and brought us so much happiness. So I was just sitting here thinking that if you want to send us a picture or something that you've colored, you can share that too. And if you won't, I'll share some of my coloring with you. I can take a picture of it and put it on Facebook, and we can kind of trade pictures that way.
She's been sitting around coloring all the time.
Yes.
Anyway, if you want us to send you something, make sure that you have your parents message us on Facebook with their email, and we'll be glad to do that. But right now, let's finish up and have our prayer.
All right. Dear God, thank you so much for always keeping your promises. The news that Jesus came to save people from sin is such good news. We confess that we do not always keep our promises, but you, Lord, are faithful. Help us to trust in Jesus for our salvation. And all God's children said, Amen.
All right, boys and girls. We'll see you later.
We miss you. Love you too.
Bye.